Tepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to talk about Herukhuti God of War. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe bell to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. If you want to know more about my spiritual teachings, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. There's no obligation, and you can cancel at any time. As a supporter, you'll get access to instructional videos on the spiritual, videos like how to meditate properly, how to do breathing exercises for health and longevity, how to contact the ancestors, how to contact your guardian angel, how to do lucid dreaming, how to put together a magical amulet. And we also have special video series on like ancestral curses, on mantras, a lot of good stuff. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. Now, I want to talk about Herukhuti because he's one of those gods that doesn't get a lot of play in the Kemetic spiritual tradition. We talk about a lot of other things, and this is coming from the Port Emheru, or the Tree of Life. And you'll notice on the Tree of Life you have Ma'at, and directly across from Ma'at you have Herukhuti. Well, who is Herukhuti? Well, first and foremost, like the video says, he is the god of war. But I don't want to just leave it at that, because he represents so much more than that. You see, in the Christian faith, which borrowed heavily from the Kemetic spiritual tradition, and the Kemetic spiritual tradition is not a religion meaning to tie back to. In the Kemetic spiritual tradition, we note that evil or transgressions, we see them as a means to an end. Meaning, if there's a person in your life, whether it be your brother, your sister, your boss, somebody you're in a legal suit against, if there's somebody that's causing you strife in your life, or angst, or pain, and you consider them your enemy, you have to understand that they are here for a specific reason. They are here to help you to spiritually grow, and therefore they're not your enemy. This is why in ancient Kemetic tradition, Set, the god of evil, was very, very important, so much so that they created statues to Set, because they know without this so-called evil, there was no way for you to grow spiritually. So, in other words, no pain, no gain. If there's nothing in your life to push against you, then there's no way you're going to grow. It's like going to the gym, and if the weights aren't heavy enough, you're not going to develop any muscles. So if you're not having those individuals in your life that are going to cause you some pain, then there's no way for you to grow spiritually. Those Buddhist monks who go on in the mountains and meditate, they're not learning anything, because there's no one that's pushing against them, or nothing that's pushing against them. Now, there are times, even in the Christian religion, you'll see that God did punish evil. So there are times when there are transgressors to the law. Now let's go back as a reminder. On the Tree of Life, we have Ma'at. And Ma'at is the law. Ma'at dictates the law. And Tehuti, or Jehuti, is the measure of that law. But we must understand that there is a place for God punishing those who transgress against the law. And that aspect or faculty of God that does that is called Herukhuti. See, these are all aspects of God and how God comes. It's like looking at a prism, and a white light shines through that prism, and out of the other side comes these myriad of other colors. And one of the manifestations of God is Herukhuti. So if you break the law, then Ma'at sends Herukhuti after you. But Herukhuti is not here for punishment, just for punishment's sake. Herukhuti is to put things back into balance, Ma'at back into balance. Okay? Because God doesn't seek revenge. God seeks balance. God seeks to understand what happened. And to understand that, we have to look at the whole. Again, Ma'at, looking at the whole, which is right brain thinking, and understanding what went wrong to cause this person to go out of balance. The old African tradition, and Hillary Clinton used to say this a lot, it takes a village to raise a child. That's true. Because the village is held culpable for if the child goes out of order. Because there must have been something wrong. See, when you're in ancient Kemetic society, you were raised not by a book of laws, like the Ten Commandments or the Bible. You were raised through osmosis. You would go through your development, and you would look at how everybody conduct themselves, and from that glean how you should conduct yourself. And if you decide to be selfish and break that law, then Herukhuti will come after you, God of War. And if you were someone like, which was very rare in Kemet, a serial killer, then Herukhuti would cut your head off. Because he's an executioner as well. The very act of, let's say, for example, you have to understand that God doesn't directly intervene in your life. God creates these laws and these faculties that operate autonomously. And if you break these laws, there's a safeguard mechanism to put you back into balance. God doesn't directly have to get involved. God created that Herukhuti aspect, that Ma'at aspect. And Ma'at says, Herukhuti, I need you. This person is going out of bounds. And Herukhuti then steps in. Now, if you understand the story of Asar and Aset, it was Heru who was training to be king. And here's the Heru with the upper and the lower crown of Egypt, meaning he ruled both upper and lower Egypt. And when he was fighting Set, it was ended in a stalemate. And it wasn't until he went and got wisdom from Tehuti, who restored his third eye, that he was able to defeat Set. Meaning he was able to look at things holistically and win the battle. But in the Kemetic tradition, when Heru went to battle Set at Ben-Hutet, he transformed into Herukhuti, warrior god. Now you have to understand is when you're carrying on this Herukhuti energy, it can only be for a short period of time because it's very hot, very volatile. So in the African tradition, when we become possessed by Herukhuti, it would only be for a certain amount of time because Herukhuti could cause mass devastation. Unchecked, he can go and just kill large amounts of people. So we have to keep him in check. And in the Kemetic tradition, of course, there's a relationship between every deity. So Herukhuti had a relationship with Heru, but he was too aggressive for her. This combination, this energy is very good in a way for creativity. But she ended up marrying Heru, who later became the king. So I want to read a little bit from the Meduna Ter. It's kind of like our Bible, the Meduna Ter by Ra'u Nefa Amen, and what he has to say about Herukhuti. And in it, he talks about the qualities of Herukhuti. And those are courage, manifesting as the lack of fear of bodily harm, energetic, prudent, magnanimous, forceful, enterprising, constructive, skillful, zealous, passionate, delighted, and motivated by situation involving challenges, or hard work and dangerous but relatively short work, as I had mentioned before. You can't carry this energy for too long. And some of the careers this aligns with are soldiers, fighters, warriors, executioners, butchers, slaughterers, hunters, people employed in dangerous undertakings, firemen, athletes, mechanics, surgeons, analytical theoreticians, criminal lawyers, persecutors, policemen, shrewd and driven business executives, shrewd and business executive. And I'm going to give you an analogy and why it deals with business executives. The analogy of Herukhuti is that he cuts his head off. He separates himself from his person. He separates himself from his person, meaning he's able to separate his emotions. So, you know, in the old days of Europe, in England, we would see the executioner where he would cut people's head off through the guillotine. Well, that person had to set themselves, their emotions aside to perform that act of beheading the criminal. So as a Herukhuti, your emotions can't come into play. If you're a fireman and there's a child crying on the back of that door, and that door is hot as hell, you got to set your emotions aside and break through that door to get to that child, to save the child. If you're a shrewd businessman and you take on the Herukhuti energy, and you're going to purchase this company, and the woman says, well, my father built this company up from scratch, you know, ever since 1946. It's been a family business. And you, as Herukhuti, are going to purchase the company and liquidate it, thus destroying what her and her family built over years. Well, that's Herukhuti energy, putting your emotions to the side. And what we really don't understand, and this is a very, very important business advice to African American people, is that when you look at Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all these individuals, they are devoid of emotions. You see, to get to where they are, to be multi-billionaires, Zuckerberg, they had to put their emotions to the side. If you watch that movie about the start of Facebook, you'll see how, hold on one second, because, you know, I don't know why I am drawing a complete blank as to his name. Who's the creator of Facebook? Mark Zuckerberg in the movie, he had to get rid of his partner. And his other partner came up to him and said, hey, look, listen, this is how it's done. Because they got rid of the partner unceremoniously, and it was kind of cold in a way. But it was an education to Mark Zuckerberg that this is how it's done. So you must understand that when you're looking at someone like an Elon Musk, he's not a very morally upright person. Because to get to his level, he's had to destroy companies. He has had to destroy careers and livelihood. Walmart. Those companies had to destroy mom and pop shops and not allow their emotions to get involved. So this advice to African American entrepreneurs is like, you have to understand that there's something built in the European mindset, which is the left brain segregative thought process, that allows them to easily trample over people, ignore their empathy or their sympathy for individuals. But as for African Americans who are right-brained, we naturally have that ability to empathize with others and see the whole. So many of us are not built to be that cutthroat. We're not built to get to that level of evil. You understand? Whereas we would go to NASA and say, NASA, let's work together. Elon Musk would go to NASA and say, the hell with you, I'm building SpaceX. I don't need you. So I want you just to think about that for a minute, because that's what Herukhuti is all about. He's an entrepreneur. He's a person that goes at it alone. He's a warrior. And he's not going to sit there and consider someone else's feelings, because he cuts his head off. He separates himself from his person. He separates himself from his emotions. That's how he's able to be successful. That's how he's able to be a warrior. So let's read a little bit about the spiritual functions of the Madinater. Let's remember that underlying all actions is the urge to succeed, which depends on following divine law, ma'at. Our protection from all external obstructions is the domain of Herukhuti, but all such obstructions are the eternal projections of the obstructed condition of our life force caused by our breaking of the laws of ma'at in our dealings with others. By cutting, no pun intended, our identity off from our persons and placing it firmly in ourself, the indwelling intelligence, we find that the strength to be just with others in all situations. Now this goes to the reverse. There are times when you need to be just. If you're a multi-billionaire and you know that there are people in Africa that need help and assistance, could you give your billions to them? There's that fear of being broke, of losing your billions. Same thing. You cut your head off from your person and you ignore your emotions and you give to the needy. How many of us can do that? Because we're so wedded to materialism in this world. Thus, we receive protection from the Supreme Being. It also gives us the courage to sacrifice our lives for the well-being of others. Again, as I gave with the firemen. You ignore your emotions to save someone. The failure to detach our identity from our persons compromises our sense of justice and our ability to grow spiritually. That's the problem in the world. We're so tied to our emotions that we have not been taught to cut ourselves from our emotions to do right in this world. So therefore we give in to our greed, our fear, our anxiety, our lust, and we go nowhere. That's why in the spiritual tradition, in the tree of life, in climbing the tree of life to become God on earth, we're taught at the Herukhuti stage how to detach yourself from your emotions. That's why Herukhuti is so important, and we don't hear enough or see enough of him in the Kemetic spiritual teachings by so-called others who consider themselves spiritual Kemetic priests and priestesses, when they don't know anything about Herukhuti, God's offensive power. In Kemet in Egypt, when they had to go to war, especially against like the Hyksos, they had to invoke the spirit of Herukhuti. You see? When you are starting a business and you want to do well, you've got to invoke Herukhuti, or else you'll never succeed. People talk about, well, I want to start a billion-dollar corporation. Okay. Do you have it within you to crush other businesses? I'm not saying it's right, but I'm telling you that's how things are done in this modern Western white man's world. They crush other businesses. I used to hear, I'm a filmmaker, so I used to hear other people going, well, I'm going to start my own Hollywood. It'll be my own black Hollywood or my own Latino Hollywood. I'm like, really? You think that Hollywood is going to let you compete with them? They're going to crush you. The minute that they see that you are a threat to their existence, they're going to do everything they can to crush you. Now, let me ask you this. Are you prepared to do the same? They have no clue. They think that they're going to build their own Hollywood and get to a point where they have investments from Wall Street in the neighborhood of billions of dollars, and Hollywood's just going to sit there and let that happen. That's not how white people work. I'm sorry. Snickers bar is not going to allow you to sit there and come up with your own Africana candy bar. They're going to crush you. They're going to put out bad press. But wait, they will only do that because I want you to understand, because you would be like, well, I started my candy bar and they didn't crush me or put out any bad press on me, because you weren't a threat. This is an old story. It kind of relates in a way. I was at this social event. I went up to this woman and I was flirting with her, and she was flirting back with me. And my friend is a dating coach, and he was watching everything that came along. So as I was flirting with this woman, her husband came over, and I apologized to him. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea that she was married. Turns out he was watching the interaction the entire time. So I went to my friend who's a dating coach, and I said, well, why did he watch that? Why did he allow me to flirt with her? And he said, well, because number one, you had bad game. And he said, number two, you weren't a threat. She wasn't really interested in you. So he deemed you of no threat. So he allowed you to just flirt. So I want you to understand, when you're doing your businesses and you're starting them out, you're going to be ignored until you build yourself up to be so successful that they see you as a threat. You don't know how many people, let's take for example, anti-gravity machines, levitation. Don't you think by now we would have invented flying cars, anti-gravity? That was invented decades ago, by different inventors. It was invented, it was patented. Why don't we see it? Because those individuals that created it were assassinated, were killed. Because it serves military use. It gives us a military advantage to have anti-gravity. So those individuals that created it, the plans for building it were stolen, and the people were either hired to work in the shadow government, or they were executed, assassinated. This is why there's a new movement now that talks about, if you're inventing something, that you need to put it out on the internet for the public. That way, there's no reason for them to assassinate you, because now it's public domain. The public has it, instead of keeping it exclusively for yourself and putting your life in danger. But I digress. So I want you to understand the power behind Herukhuti, the warrior, and how he's, even though you may not hear a lot about him in the Kemetic spiritual tradition, he's a very, very important deity. So I hope this message resonates with you. This is Qesankh Ma'akeperu. Don't forget to donate to the channel. This is Qesankh Ma'akeperu, son of Ma'an Tahuti. My aunt is a beautiful goddess, Heteru. Until my next video, I'm in Ra.